You need to be aware of this, and many people may not be aware of it, and why would they be unless they are involved in the real estate world day in, day out, like I am. If you are buying a house or selling a house now or will be soon, you have a potential problem, and we are going to talk about that in this video. How do the agents get paid?
Show me the money!
If you use a realtor or someone in the transaction uses a realtor, even if you don't, this question is going to come up, and it has changed or is changing from what it used to be over the past century. It used to be that from the seller's proceeds, they would pay a broker, and that broker would split the commission with the buyer's broker. That's how the listing agent and the buyer's agent got paid.
I like it.
Well, I say it used to be. It still is that way. But things are changing. And this is not a video about what's going to happen a year, 2 years, or 5 years from now. This is a video about what's happening right now in 2024 and what you need to know. It is true, things change all the time. And what is true today in the real estate world is not true, or was not true, back when this whole commission split thing started, which we're going to talk about in a second. The consumer has tons and tons and tons of information at their fingertips.
It's too much! It's too much!
But I think the road that we're on right now has some really big potholes and speed bumps and big curves, and we need to be careful about how we go forward from this point. Let's take a quick look at the history.
7 years ago.
No, not that history. The history of real estate commissions, of the professional fees that buyers and sellers are paying to the agents who represent them. This splitting the commission that really comes from the seller's proceeds started back in 1913 when the National Real Estate Exchange, the predecessor to the National Association of Realtors, suggested that it'd be a good idea for you to split your commission with a broker, an agent who brings a buyer to the sale of the house that you have listed. And this same industry standard has continued from 1913 till today, over a century. What has not been the same has been the commission rates. They fluctuate, they go up and down. Today, you might say, and you might see that the standard industry rate of commission is between 5 and 6%. And the fact that they change, that they go up and down, is proof, some would say, I would say, is proof that it is not a fixed rate. These rates are negotiable and have always been negotiable. In fact, no one is or has been ever forced to use a licensed real estate agent.
I'm going to do it.
You can sell your house, you can buy your house on your own. And in fact, 8 to 10% of the people in housing transactions do just that. They sell or buy on their own. Now, this does seem like the perfect opportunity to tell you who I am. I am JD Miller. I work with that little international real estate company called EXP Realty. And if you want to get a hold of me, if you are the type of person who says, nope, I don't want to do it on my own, I need some help navigating this, and we're going to talk about things that need to be navigated, then you have my name and my number right there. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm talking to people every single day, by phone, by text, by email. So if that's you, feel free to reach out to me. So let's get back to the big so what. So what, JD? What's going on? We're talking about how is my agent getting paid? What's the big difference? What's new? Well, this is what's new. In the past several months, there have been several lawsuits against the National Association of Realtors and some big brokerages that have accused these organizations of artificially fixing commission rates and therefore artificially inflating the price of houses. The Department of Justice has stepped in and they said, we want to decouple commissions. We want the person listing their house, selling their house to pay their agent their own fee. We want the person buying their house to pay their agent their own fee. And while that seems all well and good, there are some problems that we need to be aware of, and in fact could affect you right now if you are thinking about selling or buying a house. Here's a little graph video of how the money normally rolls. A seller and an agent connect. They like each other, they want to work together, but that seller really makes an agreement with the agent's broker. And when that seller sells their house, a part of the proceeds, the commission, the professional fee that they have agreed upon goes to the broker. That broker takes some of that money and pays it to the agent. The agent doesn't get paid directly. that agent's broker takes some of that money and gives it to the broker for the agent who's representing the buyer, and that buyer's broker takes some of that money and pays the agent who's representing the buyer. So what's the problem? What happens if today, like the DOJ wants, we decouple that? There's no longer that split happening and everybody pays their own way. If today the seller says, you know what, I'm not going to pay any commission to a buyer's broker. I don't care how they do it, but the buyer is on their own. They have to pay their own commission, their own fee. And by the way, the seller could always do that. They could always say, I'm not paying this number, I'll pay this. I'm not paying both, I'll pay you. I'm not going to pay you, I'll pay them. They could do whatever they want. But the question is, those buyers who need representation, who don't know how to go out there and work all the system and buy their own house, who need someone looking out for them, where do they get the money from? As a seller, you want your pool of buyers to be the biggest, the largest, the deepest, the widest, the hugest pool of buyers that you could possibly get.
I don't think that's right, but sure.
The more potential buyers, the more possible competition.
Me.
And competition can increase the price for which you can sell your house. The good news is a lot of sellers have quite a bit of equity in their house. So when a seller is selling their house, they have all this equity and they can take a piece of that and pay their listing broker, who can then pay the listing agent, who can then also pay the buyer's broker, who can then also pay the buyer's agent. That can come from the seller's equity. The bad news is a lot of buyers don't have a lot of extra money. Where do buyers come up with all this money to have a down payment, to pay their closing costs, which go to the lender, and to pay their agent to represent them? Where is this coming from? A lot of times sellers are already giving concessions to buyers. In fact, as we ended 2023, 35% of transactions included sellers giving concessions to buyers. And this allows more people the opportunity to buy that otherwise would not have the opportunity. As for the buyer, most people want someone to represent them. How do they look at houses and property that have HOAs, that have zoning issues, that have CCRs, conditions, covenants, and restrictions? How do we navigate a contract? How do we make our contract more appealing or stronger to the person selling their house? How do we deal with lawyers and settlement agents and the other agent? How do I communicate all these things? How do I know about inspections and inspection periods and who's responsible for the inspections and who pays for the inspections and all the different contingencies, appraisal contingencies, homeowner insurance contingencies? I got to sell my house first. What do I do now? How does a buyer navigate all that? Well, most of the time, 90% of the time, they have an agent who is helping them navigate that. But if this system turns all upside down and the sellers say, nope, I'm not paying the buyer's agent, where does that money come from? And many people might say, hey, just pay it. You're the buyer, your responsibility, you pay it. That's true. If the buyer has a bunch of cash on hand, then they have the funds to pay that 3%. But it's generally 3% in closing costs. They have their down payment, and then they have their agent that they also have to pay. And over 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. So where is all the equity and where is all the money in a real estate transaction? Most of it is in the seller's house, not in the buyer's bank account. Some people say, hey, wrap it into the loan. That's a good idea. In fact, the Department of Justice said just that. If you want to buy a house for $300,000, just increase the price to $309,000, and then you can pay that money to your agent at closing. But that's a problem because there is a cap on what lenders will allow buyers/borrowers to take in concession. And that cap depends on the type of loan and the money that they're putting down. There is normally not 3, 6, 9% in concessions that can even be allowed to be given to a buyer during a transaction. So that answer is not really going to work. And in fact, the weird thing is, that's the same thing that happens right now. If the DOJ says, hey, just wrap it into the loan, well, isn't that what's happening now? The seller's saying, I know I'm going to pay 5%, 6% commission, so I want to list my house at this because when I take the commissions out, I'm going to net this. That's what's happening now. We're just making it more difficult if we switch up the system and say, buyers, pay your own, but you can't wrap it into the loan, or you can only wrap in this much, or you have no money in the bank account because there's no equity, there's no money there to be had. It's making it more difficult, and their DOJ is saying just do the same thing. It's a little weird. So what do you do? This is the point of the video. What do you do? Well, sellers, you have to talk to your listing agent. When you sit down and write a listing agreement and decide what percent are you willing to give to the listing broker, are you willing to have them split that commission and pay some to the buyer broker? If you're not, if you're only going to pay 2% or 1% or 0%, how is that going to affect the available pool of buyers who might be able to purchase your house? How is that going to affect who comes to look at your house and possibly the purchase price that you can receive for your house? Is it worth it to you to do that? Or is it worth it to you to talk with your agent and decide, yep, I'm going to keep going this way for right now, and I'm going to agree to let them split this commission and pay a buyer's agent so I can be assured that someone is working on both sides. Here's the other problem. If you go, okay, JD, 6% is normally what I would pay you, but I'm going to save 3% and I'm going to give you 3% and I'm not going to pay the other person something. One, I may not agree to do that. And the reason is because I know when there's an unrepresented person in the transaction, I'm doing twice as much work. I really am. They don't understand the contract. They don't understand the deadlines and the due dates and the money that has to be paid and where it's coming from. So I end up doing work for both sides, not fiduciary, kind of look out for the interest of both sides, but paperwork stuff, administrative stuff. I end up doing more work. So I'm not going to reduce it from 6 to 3 and when the other person's getting 0 if they're unrepresented. It's not real conducive to many agents to agree to do that, but here again is the choice. The seller, the buyer, always has the choice to work by themselves or work with an agent. And the agents always have a choice to agree to whatever commission they both talk about and they both decide is good. Buyers, if you are working with an agent and you know there are houses out there that might offer 2%, 1%, 0% from the seller side to cover your buyer agent fees, you have to talk to your agent. You have to say, hey, I don't have the money to pay your 3% or your 2.5%. So I don't want to look at houses where they're not going to pay an agent on my behalf. I can't afford it. Or if I do look at a house, do I have enough information where I can tell my agent, okay, I'm going to go on my own because I need to look at this house and they're offering 0% and you're not going to work for 0. Correct, I won't work for 0. I can't do that. I want to help as much as possible, but I can't agree to the big goose egg. So it's all about communication. Sellers have to communicate with their agents to decide what's best for them in their transaction. Buyers have to talk to your agents and decide how can I best be represented because there's a lot of information out there coming at me and I need to make sure I'm protected and I know what's happening for my own good. So everyone needs to talk. Here are my 3 B's. Be informed, be communicating, and be getting it in writing. That's my 3 B's. Maybe be going to English class if you didn't like the way I said that. You have to do all this by communicating and signing agreements that everyone understands so they know where the money is coming from. But that's this video. We'll see you on the next one.